Alrighty. Well, there comes a time where fairly often I am reduced to canned food and dried food as a result of, buying stuff in a supermarket but then not getting back to one for several more days. Yes, I've got a fridge. You really don't need it this time of year because it's getting colder over here. But inevitably, sometimes you go to the discount section and there ain't much there. Or, several days later, you've eaten most of what you got your hands on. Or, often enough, some of it wasn't even going to last the 3 days that it takes you before you get back to the discount section, because it would be rotten by then. In fact, sometimes I buy yogurt and it's already bloody rotten when I buy it. So I find out a few hours later. Anyway, I've got some beans here. These are dried beans. I've got quite a lot of dried beans. And, of course, I set them in water. And that's the best way to cook them, is to actually soak them in water. They're usually overnight, or, a decent amount of hours, 8 hours or so. You can get away with about 5 hours or 6 hours, I think. And that's one of the tactics that I often have, is to, have plenty of stuff on hand that's, I've got 4-bean mix, borlotti beans, which is those ones there, green split peas, yellow split peas, and inevitably rice. That's the good shit, basmati. Often enough it just doesn't sort of end there either. You can get lots of other little things like curry and garlic granules and a whole heap of stuff, usually made by a mob called Hoyts, at least in Australia. A lot of dried condiment stuff. They got frickin' everything. All the spices you could dream of, they probably sell it. Needless to say, I've still got to process this, but weeks later, it's dried mint, and of course you can have things like pumpkin and whatnot, and potatoes. I always have some potatoes. I've even got dried plums up there, which I should try out. They're ones I done in the dehydrator thingy that I made, which is still actually hiding out behind the caravan. I should try them out now, several years down the track, and see how they are. But anyway, there's some simple, straightforward ways to deal with this food. Rice and potatoes, if you cube them up small, cook fairly quickly, and you're not going to use up much propane if you're not already running a wood stove, which I sort of am, but, I haven't got to actually using it so far. I've got quite a bit here, some of which I've eaten already. That's straight rice. I've thrown a bit of this gear in, Moroccan seasoning. It's basically a mix of, usually they've got actual rice flour in it. Yep, they do again. Then there's, cumin, and I think there's a bit of pepper in there, and there's definitely sugar in there, and a bit of salt and everything. That goes well on top of the rice. But what I basically do, and this will get you 2 plates of stuff in one hit, that's sort of almost 2 different meals. You get the old frying pan, and you fill it up with water, not completely full. But before you do that, chuck some rice in, then fill it about halfway with water. And, that'll go for 10 minutes or whatever, just simmering away, maybe not even that. And, you'll get yourself straight rice. Now, you can scrape out a lot of the straight rice using, I actually use the flaming egg flip, believe it or not. Just your run-of-the-mill egg flip, steel egg flip. I don't like them plastic ones, few people do. Or you can use something like that, and that'd be good if I actually had cleaned it, but I haven't got to that point yet. Dish is another strong point around here, which explains why I like using paper plates all the time. Anyway, after you've scooped out a decent amount of the rice, you'll still have some left in the bottom. You sort of tip the pan down in one way, and instead of scraping it out, like instead of having the pan on an angle and scraping at the bottom, what you actually do is you tilt the pan on a bit of an angle and you scrape it at the top. And so what happens is all the rice and the water goes to the bottom, but the straight rice's drain will be at the top, and you scoop that over onto your plate. Then what you do is you crack a few eggs into the remaining mix and keep stirring it around, and you end up with basically a mix of scrambled egg and rice. Now, as you get closer to the end, you keep waiting, and the water will be won't be much left, and it'll be simmering off. You've got to stir it quite a lot as it is finally running out of water. It sort of goes like a porridge consistency, but then as you almost run out of water, you know, you got the chance it's going to stick to the bottom and burn on the bottom. So you got to stir it quite a lot, and then, you know, turn the stove off or take it off the stove and just let it this is a fairly thick base pan, as a number of mine are, and you just, you know, let it steam away, you know, in the remaining heat of the thick base, and then scoop all that out, and then you end up with this rice and egg mix, which you'd probably do with a bit of bloomin' where the hell did I leave it? Here we go. Ketchup, or as they call it in this country, tomato sauce. And honestly, there's a little bit of difference between ketchup and tomato sauce. I think there's just more sugar in ketchup as such. It's a little bit sweeter. But yeah, that's that. And I'm going to hoe into it.